Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug.Show. My name's Doug Cunnington, and in this episode, we get an update from Christy for, I think, April now. So we're getting the April update, and we've been tracking along for a very long time. So if you haven't listened to the other episodes over the past year and a half or so, definitely check those out. We'll link up for them. But Christy, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing really well and excited to hear a little bit more about how April went. So, March was a little rocky, and if people didn't catch that episode, you were a little bit frustrated, I would say, and you're like, oh, what is this working? I'm not
We're
really
overwhelmed.
sure. So
Yeah.
how do you feel now?
I do feel a bit better now this month after deciding I don't have to hit my own goals. So that was helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. They're really, I haven't been publishing that much less than I was when I was overwhelmed. I think I just took the pressure off to have to do that.
Okay.
So far, so good.
And when you decided that you didn't have to hit the goals, was it a big mindset shift? Can you talk about that a little bit? Because a lot of the work that we did in the last, year and a half, it was very goal oriented, very,
Mhm.
there were numbers, there were goals that you could miss.
Right.
So what was it like shifting gears a little bit?
Yeah, I think the main difference is I don't feel like the guilt of going to bed at 2 a.m. being like, I didn't do enough to hit 400 new articles by June, which is arbitrary. So yeah, it was just like, well, I do have other jobs. I have family. I have hobbies. I just want to get rid of some of the guilt. So I want to make sure that I still enjoy working on my site, which I do.
And is part of that just not thinking about it as much, thinking like, oh, what can I do? What should I be doing? I have this goal that like you said, you arbitrarily set
Mhm.
the numbers and the time frame for no good reason.
Right.
So, yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. It was also, I think, realizing the other components of it that I couldn't know going in, which was I don't know how many writers I'll need to get that done. Right. I don't know how much time and money it's going to take from a content manager. And then I did know, and I was like, oh, like that's not going to work. Instead of $10,000, it's going to be like $60,000 to get that done. Like that's not what I'm in for. So it was a little bit just you have more data once you get into the goal process. And that had kind of started to stress me out. So, yeah, this is a better mindset for me to be in.
It's calmer. Yeah, you sound a lot calmer. That's good.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's talk about the earnings and traffic. So where were we at and how did it look compared to, the previous month and maybe
Yep.
last year, just relatively?
So traffic ticked up a little bit. It was pretty comparable. March was 102,000. April was 105,000. Last month, March was 5,700. And that was taking into account the 650 that I made from course sales. So that had me a little worried going into this month when we weren't doing a promotion about that. So the good news is that in April, Amazon earnings did tick up by about $500, which is honestly like the biggest jump I've seen this year because it's been pretty lackluster. So I did end up at 5,700 for this month as well. So basically, Amazon kind of made up for not promoting the course this month.
All right. And what was the Amazon total? So it was up 500 from the previous month.
Yeah. So March was 2,200 and April was 2,700.
Okay. So pretty significant amount. What is that, like 25% or something? Pretty close to it.
So year over year, the interesting part is that March was down $800 and April closed the gap to being down about $200
Compared to last
from
year.
last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. And we were talking before we started recording that just in general, Amazon sales may be down, not just for
Hmm.
your site, but just in general,
Yep.
people might be buying a little bit less. Okay. And then from the, the ad standpoint, are those pretty much running even exactly what you would expect for the traffic numbers?
They are. Traffic is about, I mean, for March, it was almost exactly the same. It's higher in April, but it's $2,700, give or take, both last year and this year.
And the other side of the coin is expenses. And I'm looking, and these are pretty high expenses, probably a number that you never would have anticipated that you were spending on this project when we first got started. So, can you tell us your expenses for April and then break it down? And why are they so much?
Yeah, this is definitely my highest expense month, I think, ever. So I spent 9,100 ish this month, which brings the total for the year to 20,900, which seems insane because it's actually more than I've made off the site this year. And lifetime expenses, in case anyone's been tracking us that long, are now about 57,000. So part of the reason why this month was higher was I did prepay for some things. So one of those was a $1,300 quarterly payment for all of my email and social media management. And then I also prepaid for the teammate that's putting all of my articles into WordPress, adding the copy, formatting the content, adding the images, all that stuff. So that was $2,500 ahead of time. And then I had $3,000 went to my content manager because if you read the update later, we're kind of paring down how much she's doing every month. So we're going to be around 5 hours a week instead of the 20 that she had been doing. So this was kind of wrapping up the higher amount of hours, but that was 3,000. And then I had another 2,000 that went to all my writers in Upwork for new content. So it was a high expense month.
Okay. Yeah. And just a little quick math. The 9,000 is roughly 18% of your total lifetime expenses for the site, which is pretty amazing. But the thing is, and I know people are like, $9,000, that's crazy. If we go back and talk about the total earnings, you've earned $144,000 from the site. It's consistently earning, a full-time income basically for the past, I would say, year and a half. So you're investing in something that has proven to be a pretty good asset. So while it's a lot, and while you did spend a lot in this 1 month, it is, maybe an investment in quotes that is, again,
Right.
in air quotes, that is overdue. Some people would have said, you should be investing more on those maybe leaner months where you didn't put as much in.
I mean, some people always put in everything that they're making, right? Like that's a model too, is like literally put everything back in. I definitely have not been doing that, right, over the course of the site. What I do find nice is that compared to my other business that I run, where like it costs a set amount to keep that thing alive all the time. Like my site, I could spend nothing next month if I wanted to. Like that's a valve that you can easily turn on and off a lot more easily than I can with like another more traditional business.
Right. And I was going to ask something along those lines. In your other business, how much do you reinvest, especially say like in the first few years? I don't even know how old is your other business?
7 years going on 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
And say like in the first 3 or 4 years, how much were you sort of reinvesting?
Quite a bit, I would say initially. I mean, it is like an online business too, so I don't have like I'm not keeping the lights on anywhere, which is good. I don't have any employees. Everyone's 1099s. Like, but yeah, I mean, it probably cost me 40, 50K just to keep the thing running every year.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. And we have a wide range of audience. So some people are just trying to do this on the side and just get started. And other people have, 4 sites that they're running, and, it's hard to figure out when to take money off the table and how much. Again, some of the people will tell you some of the, I guess, business advice. I don't know what to call them, but people are like, you got to reinvest every penny, and they're very convincing, but there's a lot of ways to do it, and you have to figure out what's right for you. And some people are more comfortable, taking some money off the table, and then other people just want to only reinvest because they read about, I don't know, Jeff Bezos.
Right. Something. Not willing to become Jeff Bezos. So
yeah.
I'm all good there.
Cool. So a lot of expenses. Is this what you expected for your expenses in April? Like leading up to it? Yeah. When did you go ahead?
Yeah. Good question. One thing I was going to say was I wouldn't embark on a project like this if I hadn't have planned for it. So like the initial $20K that I planned to put into content, I saved last year, right? So I'm not actually using this year's money to do that. In theory, I mean, it's all one pot of money, but I did save ahead for that last year so that first 20K is not something that I'm like, it's not a surprise. Yes, I reached it faster than I thought I would. Like I had planned on 20K for the project. My expenses are obviously more than just new content, right? Like out of a month of 9,000, new content was actually just 2,000. So that 20K that I banked last year for new content, I'm still using. It's just that all the other expenses that go with it, like I have been getting more help with things. Like I have someone doing email and social. I have someone putting stuff into WordPress. I have a content manager. Like I had none of that really last year. So it's just more expensive if you don't want to do it all yourself. And it turns out I don't want to do it all myself anymore. It stresses me out. So,
right. And, a couple other pieces, you're paying your content manager $50 an hour, which is, pretty high amount. And we've talked about it before. The gist of it is you want to pay, a good wage to someone. You've worked with a person as a writer for a long time, and you acknowledge and account for the fact that going through Upwork costs money for the freelancer. So you're trying to pay more. Now, is there any reason you don't want to take that off of Upwork and just pay them directly?
They are not allowed to. So they could get kicked out of Upwork if they do that.
Yeah, and anybody can, but you could just say like, hey, we could go off of Upwork, you get more, and then
for the writers specifically, I would say that's just too much to manage.
Gotcha.
Okay. For the content manager, I guess I could, but I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm like, I know I make more than she does, so I just don't want to be the person that's like trying to save a buck.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like if you're the person that makes more, like keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. And I mean, I 100% respect that because people, some people have different risk tolerance, but I potentially would just say, hey, do you want to work off of the thing is, don't do it on the Upwork platform, right?
Right.
And then there's no way that they could track you down, but you could just say, hey, I'll pay you the same rate. I'll just pay you directly. And now you get a 15% raise or however much it is.
Well, and I am going to, so she's actually coming to town, which is kind of fun this summer. So I will have a chance to actually meet her for the first time. And that would probably be a good time to chat through some of that.
Yeah.
The other thing I don't know is that once I'm past this content sprint, am I going to keep a content manager? Am I going to do more sprints? I don't know. I haven't thought about it past this.
Sure.
So I don't know. I mean, I'd be hard pressed to enjoy doing all the stuff she's doing again.
Yeah. You're past that. Okay. So that, and I asked that, I mean, I've never pushed you to, do it, and I'm not now, but a lot of people did say, hey, why don't you just work with a person off of Upwork and
Oh,
then,
for sure. Oh, and I know you could get people cheaper.
yeah,
Of course.
right.
That's
Yeah.
just not my goal.
Okay. Next, we have the $2,500 to a teammate is a prepayment for putting 200 articles into WordPress. So this is what I would also think a content manager would do, but this is a different thing.
She would have if I had asked her to.
Uh-huh.
But she also has a full-time job, and she was like, here's the stuff that I would prefer spending the time on, which is fine. So I have another person from my other company that I know and trust and love and wanted to send more work to. So
okay.
I had her do it.
Okay. And it's the reason why I brought it up is it was 200 articles into WordPress for $2,500, right?
So she basically calculated she can do about, she can get about 5 things in per hour, I think, or something.
Okay.
Whatever she calculated. And she is also $50 an hour, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember now.
Well, I did the quick math and I was like, okay, so that sounds good. Again, it's like,
here's the other thing I would say. Like, yes, everyone can save more than I'm probably spending on these 2 people. These are both 2 people I very much like and want to give work to, and 2 people that like cause me zero trouble in a world where many people are like kind of hard to work with, or you're like, why did I delegate? Like, I got none of that.
Perfect.
They're the least time intensive people I've ever managed. So to me, like, worth it over paying someone $10 and having them ask me questions.
Perfect.
Please don't ask me questions.
I love it. And I like the way you're doing it. You're working with people that you want to work with. Mm-hmm. It's people that you've known for a while, and things are...
They're all women. I just want to give the women the money. Give them the money.
Perfect.
It's my vibe now.
And the reason why we went down that route is like there were several comments over the past few months where people are asking, like, why does it cost so much? Like,
her expenses could be lower.
Yeah.
Well, sure.
Yep. And there's, you put yourself in a position where you can make choices where you're happy with who you're working with and what they're getting out of it and all that stuff. All right.
And again, like, for me, I make more. So I'm not going to whine about it. If I can like throw some work to people that I very much like, that's great.
It's interesting you phrase it like that, because I never would have thought of it. So you're like, if I make more than whatever is your...
If I make more than they do, yeah.
Yeah. That's...
I don't know. It's like when you go out to coffee with a friend and I'm like, I know that I make more than she does. I'm going to buy the coffee. Like, you don't make it a thing, but you're also not like, I expect someone to buy my coffee. No.
Right.
Like, be a human about it, like lift some people up. So yeah, that's where my mind's at.
I don't
hire some women, guys. Pay them fairly. There you go. Moral of the story. Love Christy.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think the worth, and this is not what you're saying, but when you say it, I'm like, our hierarchy shouldn't be based on how much we earn. And you're like, I earn more, so I got to take care of them.
But the flip side, I think people are saying a little bit is like, but you could get someone to do it for cheaper so that you have more. And I'm like, yeah, I already have more.
Okay.
So
I see. And I think some people are interested in keeping their expenses low because they're not earning as much.
Sure.
So, and we're comparing a lot of different stuff here.
But. Well, and like, there's a bunch of stuff that I don't pay for, like it's been how many years and you're like, get a keyword tracker. And I'm like, yeah, how much is it? Right. Like, there are things that I don't spend on the site that probably are useful I could be doing. And I'm like,
right. Yeah. Okay, so let's shift out of the expenses area, and thanks again for letting us go down that route.
Yeah,
so your overall goal was to publish 400, is that right? 400 articles by June. So we're actually rolling up to June. Where are we at with the progress? And you mentioned that you were going to sort of just relax a little bit, but you ended up publishing about the same, just you're less stressed out. So where are we at with the whole thing?
Yeah, magic, huh? Yeah. So one thing I think maybe I mentioned to you too was my content manager had been putting in like a ton of time because we had also been trying to hit this goal. And so I finally said last month, she was like, this is a lot also, with a full-time job. So we went from about 20 hours a week down to 5 now, right? Part of that was like, maybe we're not going to make as detailed outlines. Maybe, we're just going to slim and trim a little bit. And so article wise, we've gotten 100 written and ready. I've published 82 as of the end of April. I have another 15 just waiting on me for review and to publish those. So I'd call it 100 out of, the 400 that I had planned for the end of June. So cool. Realistically, I'll probably be more like 200 at the end of June versus 400.
Which is still, quite a lot.
Yeah, like 4 times as much as I've ever published, at once. So
right. And are you still aiming for 400? And if so, when do you think you'll have those published?
So that's kind of open question a little bit with the topic of like, do I keep a content manager? I think if I start seeing a boost in earnings and traffic in 2 months, I would be more inclined to just keep on keeping on. I mean, it's almost easier to just keep the system running, than to like rehire writers, stop and start with a content manager, just like keep going through the list. It's all sitting there. So I think ideally, I have this list of 400 topics to do. I'll probably just keep trucking through them. I don't know. What do you think?
I think, yes, keep the team together. As you mentioned, it's easier just to keep it going. And I'm not sure, the right, in quotes, number of articles to publish. And I think if you could just do 1 per week, that would be great. And it would be, pretty minor, definitely like a very small amount of work compared to what the rest of the team has been doing the whole time. But if you could do, 8 or 12.
I mean, we've been doing
month.
like 40, right. 40 a month is not a stretch with the existing system. If we wanted to, it's just whether I want to keep paying, for that, which I could, but like, that's a reasonable expectation would be like 40 a month.
Mm-hmm. And I think you mentioned if you saw more traffic and earnings in the next 2 months, which I think hopefully by then some of the new content will have aged some and is getting more traffic, and maybe it'll help like boost the whole site as you're internally linking and all the things that help traffic, show up. Right. So that could be a little bit on the short end. So I'd maybe give it a little more time.
I was just thinking, like I had that end of June goal, which is again arbitrary. So
well, and the good thing is, even if you only see like a minor uptick or something like that, you can still, maybe you scale back the team, keep most of it in place or as much as you can. You scale it down to like 4 articles per month or 8, something minor. And then as you see the results from the work from 6 months ago, then you're like, okay, now I feel more confident. And then you could ramp it back up to maybe 16 per month, which is still pretty healthy. I mean, obviously
it's more than I've been doing. Right.
One thing we didn't mention is, you talked about keeping the site running doesn't necessarily like cost anything. You could really scale it back, and it's a very like cash flow,
Yep.
or not intense at all.
Mhm.
That said, those months, maybe a year ago, where you didn't do much, like maybe that's what we're
Mhm.
seeing now because there's such a lagging
Sure.
impact, and we just don't know until you've neglected it, and now 6, 10 months later, you're like, oh, things are slowing down a little bit.
Sure. Mhm.
And we don't know what to attribute it to. And there's all these other external factors.
Right.
I can't remember if we mentioned it while we were recording, but there's some seasonality components too. So
Yeah. I think,
it's hard to
yeah.
tell.
Last month, I think maybe we chatted about that just a little bit.
Okay. So a little seasonality. Okay. So
Because we
overall,
thought that the
yeah,
seasonality got like hidden in the first couple of years,
right.
right? When it was like growing for other reasons. And now that like last year I didn't do a ton of adding, then I think we saw a little bit of that, especially on like the highest ranking posts I have really are kind of seasonal.
Okay. Very good. So anything to note or any other questions or ideas around publishing the articles, keeping the team together, anything like that?
I mean, the only other thing I was thinking was like, I still like, even if I pare down the amount of new content we're doing, like, I want to keep my content manager engaged because I really like her. Since she was a writer that I had before, like, she can also go to writing articles, right? Like, I can also keep her engaged in other ways. Like, she knows that she can pick off the list anything that she wants whenever she wants to write about it. So that's really nice about like hiring someone you've already worked with who's written for you. And then even if I want to pare down on new content, like we'll probably get to this next, but like the improving existing content piece, I did start on this month, and I'm funneling some of those FAQ questions to one of the writers on the team that is happy to do more work. So like you do have some different levers you can pull as you go into this kind of thing to like keep the, your best people engaged and making what they want to be making.
Perfect transition. You were aiming to improve about 100 articles, which is about 25% of the existing content when you started. So
Correct.
how many have you done so far? How's it going? You have a writer working on it, which is perfect.
Right. Yep. So this was something that I put on the back burner until I got the new content stuff kind of rolling. So this was the first time I've been able to actually go back to the list of target articles. I went through and did all the research on what FAQs I was going to add for all those. I'm going to start with 2 FAQs per article. I can always go back and add more, but I'd rather, I think, touch 100 articles than do 4 FAQs for 25 articles or whatever, So I have now one of the writers working on just that bulk load of 50 FAQs for the first 25 articles. And then I'll give her the next batch, and we'll do that 4 times. And I'll probably go in and do the other stuff, like tighten up the intro, add some more images, all that stuff. But I just feel a lot better knowing that like something is happening even when I'm not doing it. So that was part of my, I think, frustration last month, was just being like, what, when I'm not doing it, nobody's doing it.
Right.
So I feel like I got that part fixed a little bit.
You talked about finding the people also ask and the actual questions. Is that something that you'd be willing to hand off to one of the writers?
I certainly could. I think when you and I chatted about it last week, it was like, yeah, that thing's really pretty fast to do though. Once I sit down for half an hour, like I can give her 25 articles worth. Right. It's not a huge deal. I almost think it would take her longer to do it because she doesn't know what's already in the pieces, So I don't mind doing that. I just needed not to also be writing it all.
Yeah. And the one thought, which may not apply exactly, but if you are scaling back the amount of content that you're going to be writing, but you do want to keep the writers engaged so that you can have them write more in the future, if you decide to scale it up, that could be a good thing, even if it takes them a little bit longer to do. and they would have to like skim the article to see if it was already covered. And they'd have to read it and then go find more questions, basically.
Yep.
So it would definitely take them longer. But to your point, you wouldn't have to be doing like things are happening without you. Yeah. And then you could be out, whatever, walking around.
Well, I know.
Anything, whatever, taking a nap. It doesn't matter.
Taking a dog walk in 6 inches of snow. The other nice thing that I could have folks do was like one of the writers already reached out and was like, do you need lead magnets written? Like, do you need white papers? Do you need whatever? Like, she's happy to do all that kind of stuff too, which is nice for the future. Like, it's not the priority right now, but
cool.
Good to know.
So final little thing on the FAQs. I liked that you were going to touch all of the 100 articles before, like, thoroughly covering each one. So you could like make a second pass. One thing, we looked at the 100 articles, so 25% of the content. And I think, you could certainly just go through the rest of them also. So like you said, it's pretty fast. You could find the questions really quick, get them over to one of the writers, and then just have someone occupied. And it could be a good thing to add variety for the writers. I know sometimes just a
100-word answer,
Yeah. Day in and day out writing the, 2,000 words, it's a little tough. And they're like, oh yeah, this is a little quicker. And it's,
for sure.
It's still writing same topics, but just a little variety.
Yep. I agree.
All right. So finally, let's talk about your products. So you have a few of the smaller digital products, they're basically ebooks, right? They're short ebooks. Correct. And then you have a bigger course and you have a second course you're working on. So what's been going on with your products?
So had a couple of digital guide sales, nothing crazy. 3 of those. Did make like $65 off of the knowledge directory, which might be a record. We'd been sending out just like a couple emails, I think, that maybe mentioned things like in lists of things. Regardless, however people got there. That was nice to see. And so about $95 from products in general. The thing that we did make some progress on is I got introduced to another writer from a friend, and I was just like, can you just take this draft content? Like, can you just take it and can you make it nice and then just give it to me and I'll be done with it. So she was like, fresh eyes. I was like, I don't even know if it makes sense. I don't know if stuff's in the right order. Like, I didn't write it. It's been a real process. Don't barter for courses, guys. Note from me to you. It's not great. People who don't write, it's not a great idea. So anyway, I was just like, just take it, do the things, clean that stuff up, and then giving it away to put in Teachable. So this thing should start going into Teachable like next week, which is great. It's just been hanging out. Wait, it was another thing that was just like, when I'm not doing it, no one's doing it. So I found someone to work on it.
Perfect.
And then I'm done. Oh, and on the Teachable front, I think maybe we talked about this last time, but like expenses wise, this is one that has bugged me. Is like I was paying, I don't know, like what was I paying for Teachable?
I think it was like $120.
Yeah, it was like $115 or something a month. Whatever. Stupid. My course is $99. So I have to sell at least 12 of them just to cover keeping the darn platform running, which I don't like. So we chatted with support. We're going to be moving to a $30 a month plan. Fine. We lose certificates and affiliate capability. I don't care. I don't want all my course sale money going to the platform that it's sitting on. So that for me is going to be a win. Makes me feel better about it. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Pay all the women, don't pay Teachable.
So I think it's great that you got the expenses down $30 a month. You weren't selling any courses or anything via an affiliate at all anyway. So the capability that you were paying for
Right.
was not even being used. So,
Nope.
so no loss. Still have the core functionality. Didn't impact anything
Yep.
else. So good win there. And I think, one thing that you said there, you're like, I don't want all the course money to go to Teachable, but the harsh business person in me just wants to say, well, you just need to sell more of them. Like you're
I know.
not
I
selling
agree.
enough.
But
But you
we're
can't do
not sure
everything,
why
and that was
people
the
are
point.
buyers.
Yeah. So in selling one per month does seem doable. And I think like as you've gone through, you've done 2 launches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's only two tries. And I think as time goes on, you'll probably get better selling these and launching them and all that stuff. So it'll just take time. And the sales cycle is a little bit slow and the feedback loop is long. So you don't get to practice this very much. You have another course coming out, right? So what's the timeline on that?
Yep. So that's the one that should be going into Teachable next week. So we should be able to promote that in the summer and see how that goes. I think one of the issues that I've run into, just like, I think people really want video courses, which is not, that's just not what I'm doing. So the number of people that want to learn with like written content and want to pay for it is less than the number of people that want to watch videos, like sit in bed and watch something. But again, like I don't want to make videos. So that's just a lever I'm not pulling at the minute.
So one other question from the audience was, why don't you want to make videos? What's the hang up?
Yeah. So I would say it's quite a bit different for my niche than like you sitting in your basement making videos, right? Mine would be very involved. I'll just say, like, it's technically complicated to make. It's not you sitting inside, it's outside with a bunch of stuff and activities and people. And like, it's just not an easy video to make. So I think the logistics of it are just not something I've wanted to get into. If it was, sitting and talking about like, here's how to do this on your computer, fine, I'll film myself and tell you how to do it on your computer. But like, if it involves a bunch of stuff and a bunch of people and good weather and like, that's just
Sure.
for the amount I'm making off of courses. Granted, maybe I'd sell more of those, but that's just not something I want to bite off at the moment. Good question though.
Yeah. Well, and I guess similar, and I'll give a quick, I guess, analogous kind of video and niche. I have a friend, Matt Giovanisi. He has a homebrewing website for beer. So it's called Brew Cabin, and his videos, his are very elaborate. They're very well done. It's more like making a movie than shooting a YouTube video, but it's heavy with equipment and planning, and there's a lot that goes into it. He does have an indoor brewery, so he doesn't have to worry about that. But a lot of people, they brew outside. So like you said, weather would have to be good. There's a lot of things that have to go right. And it would just take a tremendous amount of work.
Yep.
So side question related to it, there are some YouTube channels and video creators in your niche, and they do pretty well. And we've talked before, like you're not really interested in doing video at all either, right? So it's not just.
I mean, I just don't know what wouldn't be involved.
Okay. Yeah.
Like for my courses and stuff, like they would all be that. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And it is really tough to do video. It's like you have to learn everything like new, like the technical stuff, editing, like it's all very, very involved, and it takes a lot of time. So
it does take a lot of time. I guess the other thing that I would consider would be adding video in a different way to the existing courses at some point. Like I could see that being a project for 2023. So whether it's like take one of those influencers in my niche and have them do like, I need 10 videos about these topics, make them, I'll pay you. And then I put them in the course, like that's an option. If it's somebody that's already doing a lot of video, knows the topic, like that maybe would be something I would do. I don't know if anyone else has done that.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Any other thoughts or any other things that I missed here and didn't ask about?
I don't think so. I'm excited to like have a bunch more data than we usually do. Like I haven't done a big sprint in forever. So I think we'll have a good amount of information to kind of dig through and see what's happening with the site. So yeah, so far so good. Like the processes are working smoothly. It's expensive to have other people do work, but
right,
I'm not doing it. So
one thing you mentioned, this is the first time you've done a sprint this big, and it's been a while since you've done one. When did you do other sprints? I mean, you have a pretty good amount of content on your site, so a lot has been published over time, but it was over the course of a few years. So if you could kind of remember high level when you did big sprints.
Yeah, the first year, I would say I did probably, I think the most I ever published was like 80 pieces. And that took me a while because some of it I was outsourcing, but some of it I was doing myself. So the most I probably ever published in a row was about 80. And then last year I did a small sprint, like 25 or 30 posts that were really specific to holiday traffic. So I did that like right before Q4 to let that stuff kind of go into, more of the shopping season. So really I've not done a big sprint like ever.
Okay. And the other content that you published, you just kind of slowly published over time, and it wasn't quote a sprint. So you were just consistently publishing
10 articles a month between me and some other writer course,
Okay. About 10 for the just maintenance time. Okay.
Like
cool.
2019,
Got it.
So.
All right. And then I keep thinking of one-off questions. All right. This is the last one though.
Tell me.
So you have this list of topics for this 400 article sprint. Do you know if there are multiple hundreds more that you could just continue publishing to the point of like, if you publish 10 articles per month, how long could you do that? Is it kind of endless, or do you see sort of an end where you're like, I'm not really sure what to cover now?
Well, so good question was how I got this list probably, which was like 2 years ago. I think I had you run some reports for me on competitor sites and who is ranking for what. And then at that time, I'd gone through and picked out a bunch of stuff that I wanted to go after. And I kind of made this composite list from probably 3 or 4 different competitor sites who were ranking like top 10 in something. So that's how I got here. So I don't have another list of keywords that I've been keeping. But as far as like my niche goes, like, no, there's no end to it at all. Like I could publish forever.
Okay, great. So, and are those
don't have it waiting in the list, but
you could find them.
Yeah.
Are they mostly informational keywords?
I would say it's both, but largely informational.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting because there are a lot of people building sites now, and I've used like unlimited informational keywords as a phrase where like once you kind of understand the format and you understand the niche, usually people are pretty knowledgeable in whatever topic area it is. And they're like, oh, I figured it out. I'm never going to run out of keywords. So you ran into that. Okay. So that's cool. You could literally just keep working on it for several years and you would get bored before you ran out of keywords.
Yeah. Even though I don't have a list of keywords that I've researched beyond this like 400 or, well, I mean, I probably do have another 100 just sitting around in random files. But right when I started the site and I was discussing with you like what niche to pick, I was just like keeping a list like at night of topics. So they're not keywords, but like I have hundreds of topics that I had brainstormed back in like 2018. So if I needed a place to go for ideas, I'd go back there, sitting in a tab called whiteboard. So yeah.
That's funny. Just coming up with more and more ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's
is it
cool.
a site I can work on for 10 years? Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Awesome.
It's only been 3, so.
Yeah. Very good. Well, thanks for the update here, Christy,
Yeah,
and we'll catch up again next month. And
cool.
hopefully,
Keep the questions coming. If people want to know things about it, tell Doug.
Yeah, to ask in the comments over on YouTube, or you could shoot me an email, feedback@Doug.Show, and we'll try to ask. I just do it from memory. I don't prepare for these at all. So I just show up. I'm like, oh, what are we talking about today?
Yep.
And then Christy tells me what we're going to talk about. So,
Yep.
All right. Thanks a lot. And I'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Doug.